Hello, and welcome to ARQ. In this video I will show you the main functions and principles of creating projects of augmented reality using ARQ Editor. The built-in ARQ tools allow you to create scenarios using the state machine, record animations for the objects, create animations for individual states, and link them together. You need to spend about 10 minutes to learn the basic principles of content creation. For convenience, I have divided this video into separate parts, so you can easily navigate to the step you are interested in. When a certain step is passed, I will pause the video and you can repeat it in the editor. Now, let's start. First thing you need to know is working with objects in the editor. The outliner is divided into two parts. The first part is your scene, the second part is your assets. Let's look at the first part. It consists of states and their contents, which include 3D models, images, and audio. After creating a new project, two states will appear in your outliner, the global state and state 1 as a starting point. Let's add an object to this scene. To add an object, click Add Object in the dialog box and add any primitive, for example, a cube. If you have selected one of the states, the object will be added to the selected one. If not, the object will be added to the global state by default. Global state objects are always displayed on your scene. If you need to move an object to a different state, just drag it there. The second part is your assets. You can add assets from the two sources, your PC and Sketchfab. In order to add an asset with Sketchfab, you need to have a Sketchfab account. Let's add an asset. Enter car in the text box, select the model you like and click Add Asset. The asset will be added to the scene in a short time. To add an asset to the scene, simply move into the desired state or click on it. When clicked, the object is added to the selected state, or to the global state if no state is selected. I suggest you try all these manipulations before moving on to the next step. At the top of the editor you can see a toolbar that contains basic tools for scene navigation. Also, for your convenience, we added shortcuts for main functions. In order to view the list of shortcuts, just press the F1 key. To move around the scene, just hold the right mouse button and move your mouse. To change the orbit, hold Shift and right mouse button. To zoom in or out of the scene, scroll the mouse wheel. You can select an object both from the scene and from the outliner. Only the state you have currently selected and the global state are displayed in the scene at the same time. So, let's select an object and change its parameters. To change the transform, you can use the inspector or the controls. To switch between modification modes, you can use the toolbar or R, M, S hotkeys for position, rotation and scale. For more convenient positioning of objects relative to each other, we have made the magnet function. It is always active by default, but you can disable it using a hotkey or on the toolbar. I suggest you try all these manipulations before moving on to the next step. The main aspect of creating projects in Editor is a state machine. To call it, click on this icon in the lower left corner. When the project is created, the state machine contains two states and one additional. Call it any state. Any state is an abstract thing that can be reached, but it helps to create a transition to any real state from the state playing now. You can create a new state by clicking on the plus icon on the upper right corner of the outliner, or directly from the state machine by clicking on the Add State button. In order to create a transition between states, just connect them. You can also configure transitions between states. In order to change the transition parameters, just click on it, and you will see the parameters of this transition on the left. You can choose any type of triggers from the various. Tap, tap on object, tap with the 2 or 3 fingers, swipe up, down, left and right. In the number of repeats, you can choose the number of taps you need to trigger the transition. For example, we will add 2 finger taps there and set the number of repeats to double. To switch from state 1 to state 2, you will need to press twice with 2 fingers and the screen of your device. You can choose a transition type from the two options, wait to end and interrupt. The first means that the destination state of transition will not start while the source state is not finished. And the second means that the destination state starts immediately. I suggest you try all these manipulations before moving on to the next step. Another basic principle of creating projects in the editor is recording animation using timeline. You can record an animation for a single object and the whole state as well. Let's start with recording animation for an object. Let's add a primitive to the global state. When you select an object in the inspector, you can see information about it. Transform and a list of animations. The editor allows you to play animations that are provided by the object. For example, if you add a 3D model from Sketchfab and its creator recorded some animation, you see it and can use it in the timeline. Let's record a simple animation for the cube. Click here in the inspector, you'll open the timeline. To record an animation, you should enable timeline's recording mode. After that, all changes in objects' parameters you made will be saved, and appropriate keyframes will be created. Press the record button, move the pointer to the 3-second position, and move the object around the scene. As you can see, 2 keyframes were created in the timeline, corresponding to the initial position and the position you moved the object. Let's note that the object's animation are playing locally. It means that the object's elements can move only around the pivot point. Also, you can manage the keyframes in the timeline. To change time of the keyframe, move it. To delete the keyframe, click the backspace key on macOS and backspace or delete on Windows. If you want to edit the object's parameters at a specific key point, just double-click on the keyframe and change the values in the inspector. Also, for more accurate positioning of the keyframe, clicking twice on it, and you can set the time where the selected point should be located. So, we have created the animation. You can also rename it. Now, I suggest you create an animation of jumping and use it in the state's timeline. We created a jump animation. Let's go to the timeline of the state. To do that, open the state machine and click twice on the state where you have an object. In order to add a previously created animation, open the object and click plus in animation to add it. 2 key points were created. In order to repeat the created animation, just move the right keyframe. In the state timeline, you can also record animations for the object, but they will be recorded globally. It means that the entire object can be moved around the scene. Let's also record an animation of moving the object and get a funny cube jumping around the scene. I suggest you try all these manipulations before moving on to the next step. You can create animated transition between states. For this, we have made the Auto-Animate function. Let's try it out. Create another state and call it a huge. Then rename the first state to small. The automatic animation will be created for linked objects. Let's go to small, move our cube to any place. Now we need to create a linked object. To do this, click on the corresponding icon in the inspector and select any state in the pop-up window. In this case, we have only 2 states. Select huge. Before viewing the object in Augmented Reality, of course, it's necessary to check it. There is a feature for this. To turn on this mode, click on the corresponding icon in the upper right corner of the inspector. In this mode, you can control the scene using a toolbar or shortcuts. On the right side of the mode, you can see a list of states and a list of transitions. When you start the mode, the project starts automatically. To stop it, click on the stop button. In order to go to a specific state, just click on it. You can also stop playing a state by simply clicking the stop button next to the icon of the state being played. In order to open the project settings, click on the corresponding icon in the upper right corner of the inspector. All your projects are synchronized in your account. To view projects in Augmented Reality, you need to download the ARQ Viewer application for your iOS or Android device. It is important to know here that your device must support ARKit and ARCore technologies. You can get acquainted with the list of supported devices by clicking this QR code. We also provided links to application on our website in the ARQ Viewer section and these QR codes. So, the settings. Here you can change the project name, change the standard project cover to your own. You can also share your projects with your friends using the share function or create a public project link and share your creativity with anyone. It is important to know that the functions of creating links and sharing the project are paid and require a subscription to the ARQ service. In order to view the project, you need to click the Publish button. After opening the ARQ Viewer application on your device and then loading the project is saved locally on your device and does not require a permanent internet connection. Share function. You can share projects with registered ARQ users. You can give access to view, so user will be able to see the project on the ARQ Viewer application, and for editing, so user would have access to the project from the editor and viewer and will be able to make changes with you.